Hi, everyone. This is Rico Figliolini, host of Peachtree Corners Live, here today. As usual, every month we do this prime lunchtime with the city manager, although we're not eating. Brian Johnson, hey, Brian, thanks for showing up today. Appreciate
How
you.
are you, Rico?
Good, thanks. So many things going on. But before we get into that, I just want to say that our sponsor for these podcasts is EV Remodeling Inc. Great guy. The owner is Eli. Lives here in Peachtree Corners. The company is a Peachtree Corners company. They do great work. You can visit Eli and his company at evremodelinginc.com. Check out the designs he's done. More than happy to talk to anyone that calls him up, and we appreciate him being a sponsor of these shows. Today, we're going to be discussing quite a few things. East Jones Bridge Road, what's going on there. The playground that just opened, grand opening just a few days ago. Great looking place. Love it. You had to see how many kids were out there, how many people were out there at the ribbon cutting. Fusus, which is just signed, the city just signed on with them for a real-time crime center in the cloud. In fact, they're a cover story of the latest issue of Peachtree Corners magazine. We talk about their company and what they're doing. They're in Peachtree Corners, and the CEO actually lives in Peachtree Corners as well. So it's amazing how many things going on in the city. And also, of course, we want to talk about the forum and the upcoming rezoning requests and such about what's going on there. So let's start off, Brian. Let's start off with East Jones Bridge Road, that 12, the whole trail heading from CVS going all the way up to Jones Bridge Park, and what's going on there. That started at the very beginning of the summer. And I know that there's been some supply chain issues and stuff like that going on. So tell us what's going on there now.
Yeah, I mean, it's a timely one because at the recording of this, today is the first day back to school for Gwinnett
Right.
County schools. And in the particular case of East Jones Bridge, Simpson Elementary is on East Jones Bridge. And so what you're referring to is the East Jones Bridge itself had, when it was installed originally, had two only 3 foot wide sidewalks installed on each side of the road.
Mm-hmm.
And as the subdivisions and residential units got built back in there, a lot of people are active. And so you got a lot of bikers, even the non-spandex kind of crowd, ones who are biking
Right.
to Ingalls or the Forum or, whatever, kids biking to school
Right.
that are not necessarily wanting to be in the road or whatever. And you had a lot of joggers and dog walkers. And with only having 3 foot wide sidewalks, it
Mm-hmm.
can become congested, dangerous. Some people just would run in the road because it was so. The city's always known that there was an inadequate, pedestrian amenity along there. And as coincidence would have it, if you will, this section of roadway happens to be in the corridor of a much larger regional project called the Riverlands Project. And that
Mm-hmm.
is a plan to have a trail system that is essentially along the Chattahoochee, starting up at Buford Dam and then going down through south of Atlanta. I can't remember where it's templated to end, but to have some trail system. So theoretically, somebody could be along the Chattahoochee that whole stretch. It's like 150 miles long, and
Yeah, it's long.
it's ultimately done.
Yep.
Well, as you can only imagine, there's a lot of development that's happened. And so, on the Chattahoochee. And so it's not easy. You can't just pick the stream bank and then just go down. And so there's some zigzagging. And well, one of the ways to get across into Peachtree Corners from Johns Creek and Duluth, where this trail is coming down, has it crossing over the Chattahoochee at the Johns Creek, Peachtree Corners city limits there on Peachtree
Right.
Parkway, or actually it's Medlock Bridge at that point, State Route
Right.
141.
Right.
And there's not a pedestrian bridge crossing there yet, but that's where it's templated to come across. And then it'll follow along the current wider sidewalk you can see on the west side of that road.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wider 12-foot asphalt path.
Right.
And then it gets up to East Jones Bridge. And what it needs to do is it needs to get to Jones Bridge Park, where at Jones Bridge Park, the city is working with others to ultimately put a pedestrian crossing at the same location where Jones Bridge itself was. And it
Hmm.
gets it across to the, what is it, National Wildlife Refuge across the
Correct.
other side.
Right.
And then it would turn left and continue heading south along the river. So, anyway, that's the plan. Well, we were able to take the fact that this section of roadway is going to be part of the Riverlands project and get something in quick. And by quick, I mean we looked at the road and said we can do it with
Hmm.
a few instances where we have to squeeze it down. We can do it within our own right of way. And so the goal was to have it 15 feet wide.
Hmm.
We would have loved to have it 15-foot wide all the way down, but for it to
Right.
be a multi-use where you can have it's wide enough to have multiple types of users. So we have utility conflicts in some cases. Our right of way is squeezed down in others. We have some, private property interests at entrances to subdivisions that had some constraints. But we
Hmm.
essentially are 15 feet ish all the way down. Now, when we put this in, we started it right when school ended last year in the hope that it gets done before school starts back so that there's no disruption in pedestrian. So we started and it was going great, but then we ended up hitting a few locations where we had to depend on Georgia Power or some telecommunications companies to come out and move their stuff so that we can finish pouring a certain section.
Hmm.
And then supply chain. And so where we're at right now is we're almost done. 98% of it is done, but probably the biggest, most I guess, problematic as it relates to school starting today section that hasn't been able to get completed is right there by the waterside entrance where there were two pedestrian bridges crossing over the creek there.
Right.
And that bridge on the side where we have the enhanced trail, a new
Hmm.
bridge is coming that's 15 feet wide. It's going to be a replica of the other one. When it gets in, the current one on the other side of the road will be sandblasted and repainted. So they'll be the exact same design, but one will be wider so
Right.
that you can have this. Well, we can't get concrete. And so we're waiting on concrete for us to pour or finish pouring the abutments down in the river for the span to be set on. And so the old bridge had to be removed so they could go down and pour it, and it's not done yet. And so school starts, and now there are kids who want to walk to Simpson on the north side of East Jones Bridge, but there's a
There's
pedestrian
no.
bridge missing.
Right.
Right. So for the next few weeks, there is going to be a temporary pedestrian crossing right there. We've got additional signage out. We actually did painted a crossing in the road for a period of
Saw
time.
that. Yeah. So you have stop signs out there with flags and stuff.
Yes, and so we actually might be able to. We're looking at the manual uniform traffic control device. That's the Bible for how we sign roads. We may not actually have
Hmm.
to put a stop sign. We might be able to just slow it down with the proper amount of crossing,
Mm.
pedestrian crossing ahead.
Okay.
Anyway, one of the two things will happen by tomorrow, where today's actually digital learning. So tomorrow's when all
Right.
the kids will start. But there will be a signed temporary crossing right there. Well, they will cross back over to the south side, walk, continue walking up to Simpson. And when they get to the corner of Jones Bridge Circle and East Jones Bridge, there is a
Right.
paid police officer to help them cross back over. So, it's unfortunate. We were wanting it to be done, but in the grand scheme of things, it is a part of what'll be a pretty cool
Mm-hmm.
long trail amenity. And in the
Mm-hmm.
interim, it does provide all those who use this a much wider, safer way to use, sidewalks for recreational purposes or practical purposes than the 3 foot wide one that used to exist.
Oh, well, sure. And the 3 foot wide that used to exist wasn't very good to begin with cracks and pavements
Right.
and such. I mean, there's so many parts of Peachtree Corners, even the other side of the street, that should probably be repaved. Maybe not 12 feet, but certainly repaved and re-cemented and stuff, re-sidewalk. I mean, if you go up West Jonesbridge Circle, up that way too, one side of that is all broken up. I mean, there's so many things the city needs. You can't do everything, right? Needs to do. So I'm glad that. So do you have an ETA on when that bridge is actually going to be seeded in there? When that's going to be coming? Any idea?
We're hoping to get the remainder of the concrete next week. So that'll be the week of August 8th.
Okay.
And then if they can pour it, the only downside is in the case of where you've got concrete around bodies of water, it's a
Yeah.
special mix of concrete that requires a longer curing process. It requires a 21-day curing process.
Oh wow. Okay.
And then when it's cured, then we can set the span in. So that's done and ready to come in. And so once
Okay.
the abutments have been poured and it's cured, the bridge comes in and it's maybe 2 days to finish it up and it's ready to go. So we're
Okay.
hoping 4-ish weeks.
Okay.
Again, we hate it, but we are in the interim providing an opportunity for people to cross over the road and have all of the vehicular traffic properly warned coming to that location that there is a temporary pedestrian crossing.
Okay. So it's not, it's not like it's not going to happen. It's going to happen within a period of time. So sometimes we have to put up with things that go on. God knows in the last 2 years with COVID and stuff, there's lots of things that we've had to have patience on and stuff. So, glad the cities actually took that project to be able to do, because that makes sense. And, sometimes we have to just wait and see and get, where construction is like that. I mean, any type of construction, anyone that's done stuff with driveways and things like that in their own home knows that you have to get permitting done. You have to wait for other people. So, but I'm glad the city has a plan and things are working towards that. So let's get on to also the new playground that opened. It's interesting. I was talking to the guys that were there from the company that installed it, and they were telling me how the Qantas playground, which is the larger structure and more unique structure, because there's only three in the country. There's only one in Georgia, and there's only two of them that are covered that way in the whole United States. They were telling me how they were going around and checking the structure because, it's one thing when you have the structure up and there may be 10 kids on it. It's another thing when you have 20, 30 kids on it and everyone's bouncing around and doing stuff. And I know that some kids could get carried away and you have to watch your little ones. That structure, from what they told me also, is mainly 5 to 12 years old. Now, you could be a little older, that'd be okay. But the older kids always have to watch out for the younger kids because you never know what's going to go on, right? You could have 12-year-old, 2, 3 kids, and they're running through it, and they might knock a 6-year-old kid by accident down. I mean, just kids can be rowdy. Um, but it's a beautiful structure. They were checking it out. Everything seemed good to them. They were, and I walked around that place too. And that surface, that green surface, is really squishy. And so I think it's well done from what I can see. And I was on the Gwinnett Parks Authority at one point where I helped with master plans. This goes back in the late 90s. So I got to see how Gwinnett County parks were set up and what was involved. And there's a lot involved in doing these playgrounds
Yeah.
and things that you have to think about that people don't even think about. And it's like the maintenance of it later and what has to be done over a period of time. So you're not just putting it and letting it go, but you have to know that it's going to cost you a certain amount of money every year to keep it maintained, right? Checking screws, doing other things to it. There's always things that have to be done. So it's a beautiful playground. By what I heard with people out there, I don't know how many kids were out there. Easy, could almost be 100 kids. I mean, it was easy
Oh,
60 or 70
I
kids for sure.
know at least maybe
Yeah.
pushing 200. I mean, there was a ton of kids out there.
Yes, and adults, but I didn't see too many adults on the playground. But yeah, it was being used really well. So, what do you have?
We put it in, Rico. The down green is a gathering place, and we want it to attract people for various reasons at various times of the day. And we
Mhm.
noticed with the few pieces of playground equipment we put in initially,
Yeah.
it got a lot of use by, parents bringing their small kids, and even, say middle school kids hanging out and everything. And then the fitness trail, which had completely different reason why we put it
Right.
in, ended up having, use, just trying things out or whatever. So the
Hmm.
decision was made, hey, we have a section of the town green that hadn't kind of been finalized when, kind of locked in with a particular use.
Hmm.
And we thought, what better way to do it than to put in a planned, you know, playground area, not
Hmm.
just one or two pieces, but a big one. And we went, and we also wanted to find something unique so that our playground equipment was one that you went to because it was unique, not versus any. I mean, you could throw up a slide and a swing and
Right.
whatever, and you can find that anywhere. So we put in some of those unique things like that bamboo garden and the Qantas, which is the thing that almost looks like an infinity sign.
Right. Right.
And they're unique. But to your point, they're not meant for everybody. I believe, we have
No.
signage out there. I think it's 5 to 12. That's the recommended age on the Qantas. But
Right.
regardless of age, you have to do it responsibly. Parents need to watch their kids. It is unique. So it's not, if a kid's used to going up a ladder and down a slide,
Hmm.
that's one way of climbing. This Qantas has all sorts of unique ways to climb and get through things, which is the whole purpose of having this thing. And so we do want to encourage parents to make sure their kids are old enough, responsible enough to use it if
Hmm.
they're, and if they need to be under supervision. And we didn't even put asphalt or pavement or whatever under it. We put a special, rubber mat, you know, flooring on that
Right.
playground area because we knew it was going to be played on and kids will trip and fall or whatever. So,
Yeah.
we went out and got a company who does unique playground stuff. That's the one that
Hmm.
you were talking about, and they put this in, and we're pretty good. But again, we'll have to stay on top of it. We've got
Yeah.
regular inspections to make sure everything's still put together right. When you get a lot of kids who are interested in it, it gets a lot of wear and tear, and wear and tear means that it needs
Yeah.
more.
It
It's
gets
a good
stressed and
problem to have.
stuff. Yeah. It'll get stressed and stuff. I'm sure tightening of the bolts will be needed at some point again
Yeah.
because it is a construction piece. And listen, my kids I used to take my kids to the Gwinnett Park when they were much younger, to the playgrounds there, and they would fall off things. And you just have to listen as a parent. You can't just turn away. You have to be able to take care of your kids and know what they're doing. And frankly, if they're running around like crazy and maybe knocking into other kids, you have to be able to take care of that. I was at Disney World once when my oldest kid was maybe 7. So he was attacked essentially on the water park, small little kid water park, by another little kid who decided she didn't want to be splashed and she choked him. I mean, it was just unbelievable. Things will happen for poor kid. Things will happen in what you think is the safest place. You have to be aware of what's going on around you. You really have to take care of your kids. And that structure is phenomenal because as kids get bored late, they get bored. They have so many things that take their attention. And that structure gives them so much the ability to use mobility and dexterity in a different way than they normally would. So it's a great
That's
adventure to
part
be
of
able
why
to.
we liked it too, Rico,
Yeah.
is you're right. Kids nowadays with the technology and
Hmm.
things are just, happening so fast, they don't have the same imaginations you and I had to have
No.
when we didn't have that. So you've got to
Yeah.
provide a lot of variations, or else they'll
Yes.
get bored. And this really
Yeah.
does allow for that. And of
Yeah.
course, let's not forget, we also have a few pieces of equipment that are specifically designed for those with certain disabilities.
That's right. Yes. Right.
So we have a swing that allows for wheelchairs to get in it.
Hmm.
We've got a slide that for those who are on the autism spectrum that have some touch, feel,
Right.
uh, you know, uh, I guess issues. It's
Hmm.
the little rollers and it's soothing for them to go down versus the other one. So we actually
That's
have
right.
some things over there that are
Yeah.
tailored to those who may not be able or or don't want to use some of the
Yeah.
typical stuff. In addition to having some cool stuff for those who do have
Hmm.
all their abilities to not get bored. So
Yeah.
we feel
Thanks for
pretty good about
pointing.
it. Just be responsible,
Yeah.
watch your kids. It's not a babysitter. Um,
No,
you
it's
know,
not. No. And thanks for pointing out those special aspects of the playground also. But you're right. I mean, kids want to be on an adventure, and these types of things can put them into that space where they maybe they're thinking they're exploring a different world, by being on it. I mean, that's what I see when my kids were younger, and that's what they would be doing, exploring something. You think they're exploring the playground, but they're on Mars or somewhere, and that's
right?
they're roaming around with their friends on it. So it's a fun, but like anything fun, you have to just really be aware of what's going on. Um, so let's talk about even more dangerous, if you will. So Fusus, right? Um, Fusus is a company here based in Peachtree Corners. Its CEO is a Peachtree Corners resident. City of Peachtree Corners just signed on with them to provide a real-time crime center in the cloud setup where a lot of, and we talked about this on the last show, where a lot of public cameras, government cameras, if you will, from parks, town center, and private commercial cameras from commercial establishments, right, versus residential, are all tied into this. Um, and it's a it's an interesting way, according to Chris, the CEO of Fusus, where it's not just witnessing crime possibly, but interdicting on those criminal activities in real time to be able to see what's going on and to be able to react to it in real time versus post crime. When we're fully wired, and I know there's privacy issues, and people always will say, about we being wired. LPR is already scanning our license plates. Is that going to be used for nefarious reasons, or is that going to be used to because of legislation? Like someone brought up about LPRs and license plate recognition cameras, how they might be used against people going cross state lines to get an abortion and stuff. There's already talk about that type of use of those systems, but at some point we do want to feel safe, right? At some point we want to know that if something happens, something can happen to affect that crime. I mean, the young man that was murdered at the QT, those two of the three criminals have already been found, and no doubt
Yeah.
probably through efforts of many agencies and stuff. So tell us, where are we now, past what we discussed last time? Where are we now with the investment and the way this is going with Fusus?
Well, you kind of started it. Great example of a innovative tech company located here in Peachtree
Hmm.
Corners in Tech Park, Atlanta. Fusus. I mean, when they had their ribbon cutting like 2-ish years ago, they had
Hmm.
like 15 people, and they're over 100 now, and they're just
Yeah.
blowing up. Chris
Yeah.
Linden now, the CEO, is a resident here at Peachtree Corners. So we're not, we entered into this partnership for what we're getting from them to use their software platform and other stuff too. We're gonna partner on some things here at Curiosity Lab as they try to
Okay.
enhance their products. So great company, but anyway, at the end of the day, they created a way for cameras of any type, any make, model to be pulled together into on one platform for easy access by a police department for law enforcement purposes, sometimes to interdict on crimes in progress, sometimes as an investigatory tool for a crime that's been committed. But what we're doing is the city's cameras, all of the town center area cameras, all of our LPRs are being added to the platform right now. And when they're added, Gwinnett PD will have
Hmm.
access to those cameras either in real time, if they need to kind of see something because there's a crime going on and they need to get a lay of the land or whatever, or to go back and pull historical video of a crime that was committed that they're trying to investigate. To that point, the way they were able to identify the vehicle that the gunmen, those three that came up and shot that young man at the QT, the way they were able to find that vehicle, which was stolen, but
Hmm.
follow it down into Atlanta to a point where it stopped, and then they were able to do some other investigation to get the identity of these guys, was to a large degree Fusus, their involvement, also City of Atlanta, who uses Fusus,
Hmm.
able to take a lot more cameras than the City of Atlanta has, because Atlanta is a client of Fusus, and they unveiled their program like 6 months ago.
Right.
And because of their program, they have had the enhanced benefit of having all these private camera owners voluntarily enroll their camera in this system. So, Acme, the owner of Acme Widget Company down in Atlanta says, yes, I have cameras or a
Hmm.
camera, both external or internal. And he or she says, yes, we absolutely want the police department to have access to our video because we want it to be a deterrent.
Hmm.
Hopefully, if we sign it and tell people it's under surveillance. But if, God
Right.
forbid, we have a crime, we want Gwinnett PD to be able to have immediate access to the video feed of the crime so they can use it to come up with clues as to who it was and how to find them. And so if it wasn't for Gwinnett PD, Fusus, with cooperation with City of Atlanta and pulling their cameras in on the Fusus platform as well, we would not at least have identified the gunmen, two of the three suspects, as quickly as
Mm.
Gwinnett PD did. Maybe wouldn't ever have. I don't know. So it's a great program. So when the city's done enrolling hours,
Right.
we will then open it up to the businesses in Peachtree Corners to voluntarily enroll their camera. Nobody has to. Nobody has to do anything.
Right.
But if so, they can do so, and they can do it in one of two levels. One is just to tell Gwinnett PD they have a camera, and if there ever is a crime in the area and they may want to, or their cameras might need to be viewed by the police to see if they can see what happened, they can contact them and then request it, or they can say, yeah, we got no problem with you having real-time access to our camera all the time, 24/7, because that's why we installed it. We hope it
Hmm.
helps. So the businesses can do either one. We're also going to open it up to our residents strictly on a registry level,
Right.
meaning if you have a Ring Video doorbell camera or some other one on your property, we encourage everybody to register their camera. And all register is doing is telling the Gwinnett PD you have a camera
Hmm.
and your contact information, so that if there's a crime in the area, an investigator starts investigating it, he will have a map of all those who registered and a way to contact those people so he can very quickly reach out and say, Rico, you registered your camera. We're showing you have a registered camera.
Hmm.
There was a crime in your area. Can we get access to your video feed from this point to this point? And if you
Where.
say yes on a case by
Right.
case basis, this isn't
Right.
giving them blame. If you say yes, you can drag your video feed through the Fusus platform over and they can view it, or you can give them other ways of access, but you have to say it's okay for that
Right.
particular, and if
And,
so, they can do it.
and, and
That's our program.
physically, right. And physically upload the video versus, so they would contact me and say, listen, it's this day between this hour, this time, we'd like to see what you have. And I could say, sure. And I can just cut that video out of my app and stuff and just upload that to the portal, Fusus
Through,
portal.
yes, the Fusus
Right.
platform,
Right.
and Gwinnett PD has it, and they can do what they want with it,
Right.
and you're good. So those are the
And
two levels.
right.
Businesses can do either. They can do real time, where Gwinnett PD has it all the time, or just register. But we really encourage everybody that has a camera on their property, and they can only do some. Some may say, I want you to have
Hmm.
exterior, I don't want you to have interior. I mean, it's all
Yeah.
up to the
Right.
the owners of every camera, but we at least at a minimum encourage everyone that's a resident to register their camera. So Gwinnett Police has a map of all of the cameras in areas, so that if a crime is committed,
Hmm.
they can immediately ask for that data. And if they can
Right.
potentially quickly get it, they can string along enough that it can be a very important investigatory
Yeah.
tool for them to quickly maybe, solve a crime,
Yeah. I
apprehend a
mean,
suspect.
for sure. It goes beyond, goes, so a friend of mine had showed me the recording of his ring on his phone. It was really clear. It was, I think it was a ring. It was really clear. It was night vision and stuff. And you saw this guy, you saw a car stop at the bottom of the driveway and guy get out and start checking all the cars' doors to see if any of them were unlocked, right? So imagine you get a string of, because if they're doing one, they're doing several, right? It's not just one place. Because that's what you do on the shift, on the night shift when you're a criminal. You check several
Right.
places, otherwise you're not going to make money. So, he showed me that. So imagine being able to string that along then, and eventually find a clear enough image, and maybe even a license plate, because they might not have stolen that car to do that type of robbery, right? Um, Within 48 minutes, I think that was the number Chris gave me, the first 48 minutes of a crime, so violent crime even, is where most crimes can be, to some, not solved, but to some degree, the evidence, if you will, to be able to track down the criminal. That first 48 minutes is very important. Um, so
And
whether
imagine
it's,
if you were the investigator and you didn't have knowledge of who had a camera. You've got to canvass
oh
the
my
area.
God,
You've got
yeah,
to knock
yeah,
on doors.
hmm,
If there's nobody home, you have no way to do it. This way,
yeah,
that if you register your camera, you provide an email, a phone number, name, and then they can
yeah,
contact you either way, and then quickly do it. And like you said, that
yeah,
first period of time is crucial, because police departments can oftentimes apprehend, those who commit crime while they're still out doing it.
that's right. That's right. And that first bit of time is really important. So when should we see, when should the citizens, if you will, and I think it's called Connect Peachtree Corners. Is that
It
the
is.
the program? Okay.
It
So
is.
when should we see that happening for residential, let's say, registration? Likely. When's
Sometime
the,
in
yeah.
September is when we'll
Okay.
probably have the big press release go out. The
Okay.
website specific to this, our web
Hmm.
page will be set up so that you know how to do it. We're getting all of the kind of kinks worked out with our cameras to make sure we understand how to do it, how to give the best set of instructions and clarity,
Right.
because we don't want, again, people to think that registering your camera means that, say, Gwinnett can reach down into your camera and pull it
Right.
whenever. It
Right.
happen. Only now businesses could go to that level
Hmm.
where Gwinnett has access, but that's not going to be offered to residents right now. And businesses, even then, they could turn it on and off whenever they want. They can
Hmm.
set it up in different ways. They can, again, do exterior, not interior, or vice
Right.
versa. I mean, each enrollment and whatever level, if you're a business, is entirely up to that business owner. Nobody
They'll pro-
is
they'll
nobody
probably
has the
get a
right Yeah, nobody has a
Right.
right to it. The
Right.
only ones that are automatically being done are the ones that the city has already installed, as the 50 plus LPR cameras or the 82 video that are at the town center parking
Mhm.
deck, all that kind of stuff. That's being
Right.
done because the city owns it. We want these cameras to be a part of it. But other than that, it's going to be up to each individual owner. We just
Right.
want to encourage people to take advantage of this innovative company's
Mhm.
platform they created and allow Gwinnett PD to have a very good video net over Peachtree Corners so that maybe A, all the crimes committed here are solved. B, maybe that gets word of mouth that if you're going to do it, don't do it in Peachtree Corners. And if we
Right.
have enough good signage, we may end up, it may serve a deterrent
Yeah.
if somebody sees all these signs saying you're under surveillance or whatever at
Mm.
maybe convenience stores or whatever, and they're like, you know what, this isn't one that we want to do anything at.
Yeah.
Let's move on.
Yeah. I think it becomes, I know some people, especially after what happened at the QT, some people have been commenting, maybe Peachtree Corners needs its own police department. Now, we've discussed that many of times on this podcast about the cost of doing something like that, where it doesn't make sense, and plus, that's not a something that city's tasked to do by leadership. And but something like this can enhance the present use of Gwinnett Police in this area. Like you said, it's almost like having that net over the city, if you will. So instead of adding a police department where you have to have a SWAT team and all the other infrastructure that comes through that, and hiring police and all that, just enhancing the ability of the existing resources to be able to do their job even better at a limited amount of people makes more sense to me. And
I mean, we think it's a force multiplier for
yeah,
there to be more eyes out there.
yeah,
It's something the city is, innovative tech is something the city's familiar with. Fusus certainly fits that bill. So
yeah,
we are excited about the possibilities of it, and just we'll encourage everybody to be a participant at whatever level they're comfortable doing it.
cool. So everyone, keep an eye out. September, we'll put out the news as well on our website when that gets there. So moving on to the last bit of bit of discussion is probably something that everyone talks about to a degree, right? Because we all live here, and we all talk about development and where the city's going, and what type of density may be coming here. What happened to the Forum when that got purchased. What's going on at Town Center. What is going on in other areas of the city as well, like Holcomb Bridge, Jimmy Carter Boulevard, and such. But the thing that's coming up now, and I know that City Council has denied just recently in the last few months 600 multifamily units, apartment units, because they didn't fit in the scheme of what city leadership would like to see here. But there are a few more coming. That's this is probably the bulk of it that's coming at this point, I guess. And part of it is the Forum, which just got purchased with North American Properties. They have actually two requests going on. One is the multi-use request at the Forum, and another is the possible property that used to be Charlie Roberts, or known as Charlie Roberts property, which was zoned for apartments a few years ago, I think 4 years ago or something like that. So now North American Properties would like to see those have density, especially at the Forum, because they feel that that will help drive the economic impact of what this whole downtown area may look like. And that's what this is, right? The bridge, that whole area, it's an overlay of entertainment district that was passed some years back. Um, it's where we naturally find where our downtown center would be. And I would imagine any downtown center has density and has a certain amount of energy that's happening there. Entertainment, concerts, bunch of other things, right? Retail going on, people being able to not just when they finish shopping and eating, maybe to hang out and have another beer or have coffee and dessert. The kids could be playing on the green and such. There's a lot I think that we have to look at as a city as far as where we want to go. And so there is density coming, and it's probably needed. I honestly believe it's needed at the Forum. I've always said that. Um, and people might look at that and say, well, I've lived here since 95. And I moved here from New York. So, I mean, I came from a city full of density. Can't get more dense than New York.
And
Um, right. So maybe, someone might say, well, you're used to it. I've been here since 95. I'm not used to it anymore. But I think it's a natural evolution and progression. We're evolving a bit. And I told Bert Nasuti when he was county commissioner back some years ago that and we discussed that back then. This is the late 90s, how this part of Gwinnett County will be the first to really see urbanization going on. And we're seeing it. And I think that people should understand this is a natural progression of a city that's growing. Metro Atlanta, the surrounding cities like Peachtree Corners, like Alpharetta, like other places, Brookhaven. I mean, where do you see, Brian? I mean, I know that, you're being city manager, you see the brunt of it, if you will. You see the opposition, you see the progression of it. How are you feeling about this? How are you seeing things going? Where do where's your wisdom on this?
well, it's probably important to start with the forums. Well, probably important to start by saying, look, based on some actions that were taken in the past and other things, it's fair to say that the forum and the town center together, linked by the bridge,
Right.
is Peachtree Corners downtown. That's they were developed each side different times, but that is where our natural downtown and activity has ultimately found itself 10 years after we were created. But on the forum side specifically, uh, it has driven the sale of it was driven by a couple things. The forum was ahead of its time when you had the Gwinnett Place malls and the Mall
Right.
of Georgia's, and there was a Discovery Mills or whatever. Those
Yeah.
malls, the
Right.
old model of everything on the inside, and then the forums built, and it's this new wide, outside
Mm-hmm.
thing and everything. But it's an interesting, phenomenon to
Mm-hmm.
shoppers, and the forum takes off and it does really well. But then there was a realization that it was missing some things. So the next evolutionary step of that type of product, which you could argue is probably the Avalons or Halcyons,
Mm-hmm.
had two things that the forum doesn't have. They did the same outdoor experience and, shopping mix and everything, but they had gathering space on site,
Mm-hmm.
people, a place for there to be sometimes organized activities, small concerts, whatever, or a place to just hang out and just watch something, park benches, but gathering space and on site residential. And, you can argue that Avalon's performance is probably right now, it's probably one of the most high performing mixed use developments in the Southeast, certainly in Metro Atlanta right now. And it's hurt and other things, the forum, in that it's gotten a lot of activity. So you
Right.
fast forward to a year or two ago when the forum's performance was starting to really be noticeably declining. Those of us who go there started to see more empty storefronts. So the city started putting pressure on the current owner at the time. And make a long story short, ultimately they took a long look at the forum because we were hammering them, saying we can't. What is being done beyond the normal? Because we don't like the glide path it's on, and the city cannot afford for the forum to fail.
Mm-hmm.
And our worst fear was that they only cared about lease,
Right.
and one day we would wake up and a large, you know, storefront like Belk was now a Goodwill.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of thing has ancillary businesses that you find around a Goodwill. That's not the path that you want a large development to be on. And
Right.
so, at the end of the day, the owners of the forum looked at their entire portfolio and they unloaded every single property nationally they owned that did not have on-site residential and gathering space. So then they threw it out to the street and said, forums for sale, highest bidder.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, North American came in and I met with I think there was like 11 total. I met with every single one of them multiple times because they wanted to know how the city felt about the forum, what are our plans
Mm-hmm.
for the town center as they were looking to getting their financing together to make their offer. And a couple things bothered me about a lot of the other ones. Most of them were out of state.
Mm-hmm.
So they didn't have any local presence in Atlanta. And then a lot of them were going to do what had just happened. And that was they were going to buy it and then turn around and let another company manage it. And when you
Mm.
have that happen, the company that manages it is only worried about leases. They don't
Right.
have a actual skin in the game. But the one that stood out was North American, both because their submittal was an owner operator. They were going to own it and operate it, which you
Mm-hmm.
always like to see. And obviously, they have a track record of kind of knowing what they're doing, since they did do Avalon from scratch.
Mm-hmm.
They did the major upgrade or renovation of Atlantic Station, and they've kind of been in what is it? Is it something at East Cobb, the one that they just are in right
Colony
now?
Square. I don't know. I think
Okay.
that's a.
Anyway, but
Yeah.
so they have. So ultimately, they ended up being the highest bidder.
Well,
Their vision and what's coming up in about 3 weeks is their vision, North American's vision for basically combining town center and forum in one downtown. And
mm-hmm.
so they not only bought the forum side, but they have under contract that 4 acres on the other side of the road. And they have it's broken into two different applications, but they essentially want to put a mix of uses in. If both applications for both sides of the road were approved, it's about a $450 million investment they're making to our downtown
Right.
by virtue of doing everything from reconfiguring parking along the main boulevard of the forum so they can
Mm-hmm.
create linear parks and gathering space so they can add on-site residential
Mm-hmm.
and on-site boutique hotel,
Mm-hmm.
doing things like that, having programming. And then on the other side, the 4 acres on the town center side is they want to tie that parcel into the town center mixed use itself. They want
Right.
to tie it in by making about a $500,000 worth of improvements along the creek there, including an elevated connection between the two. And so that's their investment proposal. The difficult questions on this particular one oftentimes come down to the types of residential. The residential units between both sides of the road are around 600 units between the two,
Right.
which would be staggered over about 5-6 years. It wouldn't go on all at once. It would be about 6 years before all 600 units would be done if this is approved, both
Mm-hmm.
sides.
Mm-hmm.
But it's the rental versus equity component, and so that's going to be some of the big questions that are you can argue are above my pay grade because I'm appointed, not elected, so I don't need
Right.
they don't
Well,
count my vote
and
if
we've
I
and
wrote.
we've right, and we've discussed this before, equity versus apartments, and we've discussed how financially, if you look at the Atlanta Business Chronicle and look through reporting that they've done and stuff, that apartments are much easier to finance than equity property, just depending where you are, because you don't get enough density for equity to property to make sense. But years, things evolve and years will go by. But if it's developed properly, individually wired units for utilities and such, if these, and I know because of recent developments and because of the conditions being placed on these zonings by the Planning Commission in their recommendation, that it could be eventually equity property down the line if it evolved that way where economically it makes sense for that to be. But otherwise, the density portion, the turnover that we've discussed, and Tim Perry has discussed at public hearings at the United Peachtree Corner Civic Association when they held it, that these turnovers are 2 or 3 years, meaning new clientele, meaning new business for restaurants and other retail in the area. Because as we know, I've been here a long time. I don't go to the forum all the time. I only go to the forum once in a while. Now, if you live on site, if you've been, if you just moved in, you're more likely to pay attention to patronize those businesses, right? It's a whole different environment and understanding of that. And I know that, I have friends that, more density, and it's like we are changing. This area is changing. Brookhaven wasn't what they are now, like 10, 15, 20 years ago. And it's just a sense of what, if it's done well and planned well, you can have density that makes sense. You just have to plan it well. And the conditions I see on the Planning Commission on these recommendations are way better than what I would have seen a few years ago. I think that's also evolved the way the city has planned out and looked at density development and mixed use. I mean, you all have evolved in even what a mixed use development should look like when it comes to ratio of retail office to residential. So that's even changed and evolved better.
Well, we have to adapt. I mean, look, growth is coming, whether we like it or not.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's impossible for us to just point and say, keep on going up towards Forsyth County. We don't want you. If people want this area for various reasons, they will find a way.
Mm-hmm.
There's been some disturbing things that have happened when residential is in such demand, but there's not enough housing. We've had some of the pad split happening where
Yes.
you're taking a house
Yes.
in an established subdivision,
Mm-hmm.
$500,000 houses in, some of these subdivisions, and then the owner will work with there's a couple of these, but pad split is one where you can actually split your house, your single family detached house, into multiple apartment units.
Yes, essentially. Yeah.
Essentially. And, nobody wants to live in a neighborhood that has that. So you have to smartly manage it. We certainly have a housing need. Now, whether it's equity or rental, you can argue that, but we definitely have a need for on-site density at the forum. Really, even the town center. While the townhomes are there, townhomes, you can't get as much density as you can if you go a little higher, different units. We need density.
The acreage, the 4 acres by town center side, 13 townhouses can maximally be built there. Those things, because of the price that's going for. I mean, those things would be $1.5 million per townhouse.
Yeah, I mean, if somebody wanted to try to put the maximize townhomes on the 4 acres at the town center side, it would ultimately be about $1.5 million per townhome.
Plus, we're looking at 141. We're looking at Peachtree Parkway, a state route, right? Where, when we look at density, when I was on the Planning Commission, and certainly now, it's no different. I mean, urban planning is always the same, right? You plan the density based on what's around. No one's saying put apartment buildings next to, single-family homes. The way that some of this is done, if someone went into North Manor and decided to buy 20 properties there, and then decided we're going to put in townhouses here, is that a reasonable rezoning? Not necessarily when they're 60-foot R60 frontage property, right? So no one's saying put apartments where they don't make sense. They're putting apartments against high traffic area, against a state route, actually. That makes sense because it's a state route. And so that allowable rezoning or mixed use makes sense. And that's why there's a bunch of them that came up on Peachtree Parkway. And that's, but there's also the opportunity to deny that, which was one of them was denied recently, right? Because it didn't make sense
Yeah,
of where it was
yeah.
going.
We've had a number of them. So the forum is about the end of a long,
Yeah.
very condensed string of mixed use applications that had apartment components to it. This
Hmm.
is the end. I got nothing else in the pipeline, nor will I do anything to encourage it. I think we've had enough of it. But council has approved a few cases where they're in there where it makes sense. Sometimes it involves the adaptive reuse of an unused office building
Right.
that hasn't been occupied for a while. They just did one. So within the last 90 days, they have denied over 600 apartment units and approved 170. They did the 170 on off Sun Court near,
Right.
off Spalding on Sun Court, right across the street from Intuitive. That's
Hmm.
creating 1,500 jobs. And, the premise there was, for those who supported, was if we don't create housing in the city, we're actually contributing to our own traffic issues because we're forcing people to have to go to neighboring municipalities to live. And so they got to get in their car and drive out through there and then back. And
Hmm.
even to a degree, again, whether it's equity or rental, different topic, but if we don't have some density on site at the forum in the town center for not only convenient constant repetition of customers
Hmm.
using these restaurants and stores. The other thing it does is once some of these residents that live there get home for the evening, they can end up going to a restaurant, going to a store, whatever, and not have to get back into their car again.
That's
Versus
right.
you and I, Rico, we don't live too far from the forum, but
Right.
we do. If I want to go to the forum or the town center after I get home from work, I got to get back in my car and I've got to at least contribute to the traffic on East Jones Bridge at the
Hmm.
intersection around 141 into the property versus if I live there, I wouldn't. So it's actually to a degree contributing even less than people think to
Hmm.
traffic because you're providing an opportunity for people to not get back in their car. It's not to
Yeah.
say that more people there means that there's not any more traffic, but it is not this like, oh my goodness, how are we going to do it? And this is, of course, phased in. So I don't think the on-site residential is probably not as difficult of a question to answer on this. There are some who don't think that there is any reason to put any density, but that's not generally the one. I just would remind everybody, though,
Yeah.
is we got to be careful as it stands at this recording. The forum is at 25% vacancy.
Yes.
There are
Yes. I mean,
19 storefronts at the forum that are vacant, and 25% of the total square footage there is vacant. And if we don't do something different to drive activity there, that number
yeah.
is going to go up. And I
It's
don't like,
amazing.
I mean, there's other things that could be even pulling more traffic.
Hmm.
Norcross continues to do little things to their downtown that will
Hmm.
kind of pull things away.
Yeah.
You've got Assembly down there, the old GM assembly plant in Doraville. It's got a
Yeah.
big use going in there.
Yeah.
Gwinnett
Hmm.
County up by
Gwinnett.
Gas South Arena,
Right.
big mixed use, massive one going in there. Those
Hmm.
are all going to be new mixed use developments that if we're not
Hmm.
careful, they're going to peel even more people away. So we have to
Yeah.
create a reason, an exciting, energized forum and town center, Peachtree Corners downtown for people to come to. If
Yeah.
not, that thing's going to start dragging home values down. And that affects all of us. So, obviously, what we do is the real question. I don't think anybody thinks that we shouldn't do anything. But North American, if there was a partner who probably knew what they were doing in this area, that
Hmm.
was part of the bid to buy this property, I can't think of at least I know they were better than any of the other applicants that I met with that were considering buying it. So I do
Yeah.
think that we are lucky that they're the ones who bought the forum. I think they know what they're doing. And so
Mhm.
we have one last big, rezoning, and then I think we can catch our breath and let's go quite a while
Yeah.
without having more of these for a period of time.
For sure, and I agree with you. I mean, after speaking to Tim Perry and his team, and the way they operate their facilities and such, I mean, they want it to be unique. They want it to be looking different, even from retail to retail within the forum. They would love to
Yeah.
see it different looking. I was just at downtown Duluth the other day, talking to the Duluth Festival people down there, and just walking through what they've done over the last 5, 7 years. A lot more density, a terrific amount of different type of retail, and different type of retail looks and frontages, and just a unique. I felt almost like, um, like if I walked into one place, I think it was called Local on North, and I had lunch there with some people. And it looks like this old, place, this eatery place that you would see in Brooklyn, maybe, or any of the northern cities almost. Tiled, open kitchen in the back, small, but enough seating and stuff. It looked really nice, on the outside and stuff. I,
They've done a very good job, eclectic mix of
yes,
stuff. And but you
perfect
you
word.
say that they've done well, but that is now a competitor of the forum. It used to
That's right.
not be. It didn't have anything, and now it's
Yeah,
doing well. That's why we cannot afford to sit back and
that's
hope the
right.
market corrects or hope that we have got to inject something into this while we still can do it before that
Hmm.
glide path goes from this to start really going. And it's
Yeah.
it's not in a good glide path.
No, the forum for sure, with 19 empty storefronts now. And it was 14 when I counted it. And it's just like, you know what? This is just not good. Um,
No,
yeah.
so
So
an
I'm glad.
important, big, important question,
Yeah.
coming up in front of council. But again, hopefully, this thing has some new life injected, and I'm excited to
Yeah.
see what can be done over there.
Yeah. So am I. That's coming up on the 23rd, I think, of August, the vote.
23rd. Yep.
Right. So actually, they had the first reading last month, and this month is
Yeah,
the,
this is the vote. 23rd is
okay.
it.
All right. Cool. All right.
With again, important to say, nothing else in the on deck circle.
Yes, I didn't see anything
More
on the
mixed
planet. I didn't,
use, no more. No, I mean, I've
this,
dissuaded. I think some people are reading the tea leaves. We have had our fair share, and the demand is such that it just
yeah,
made developers want to take their chance and go for it.
yeah,
But I
yeah.
think everybody's seeing that we've been fed enough of it. It's time for us to lay on the couch after Thanksgiving dinner and take a nap and
Yes.
digest everything.
I think there's other things that the city will be focusing on in the coming months, in the coming
Yes.
12 months. So all good. We've reached the end of our time, and we spent an hour discussing all sorts of things going on in the city, from the forum on up to East Jonesbridge Road, the playground, Fusus, crime. Thankfully, we are a safe community with just minor things that have happened. Um, so we hope to continue to be a good, safe place for people to come and move to, right? So great
Yep.
stuff. I just want everyone to remember we're the city council, the leadership there, Brian Johnson, city manager, the mayor, and those involved in other aspects of volunteering their time, both on the planning commission, on the DDA, and a bunch of other places, arts council. There's lots that the city can do, even more so than they're doing now. Um, it's a good future out there. I'm glad the city is here, and I'm glad that we have good representative government here. That they vote their mind on these things. So appreciate Brian you helping out with clarity and bringing some forth information that my listeners can listen to.
Thanks for providing the venue, Rico.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
for sure. So everyone, this week, this should be hitting your post office, Peachtree Corners Magazine. Lots of good stuff in here. about not just about Fusus, but also about the mixed-use developments that's coming up on the 23rd. Hispanic Heritage Month, some coverage there. We have, believe it or not, an 8-time Emmy Award-winning filmmaker that lives in Peachtree Corners. There's a profile on him. There's so many different people that live here and things that I don't even know about until we find out. And it's just like, wow, I didn't even know that. It's just
Yeah.
amazing. And of course, stuff like cornhole, which is really popular. So go out there and play some. There's a new registration going on. You can find more information at livinginpeachtreecorners.com. Certainly, you can subscribe to our newsletter. Thank you again to our sponsor, EV Remodeling Inc. And if you're looking for remodeling done, design, build, they've done great work there on House. You can check out their work. Just go to evremodelinginc.com. And of course, I want to thank all those advertisers that support us. Good journalism. Hopefully, everyone's enjoying the publication and what we're doing. So, thank you. Join us for the next podcast that we will be coming up with several more. And recently, we just did one with Eric Christ, City Council person, and then we had CEO from Fusus on as well. So check out those podcasts. Thank you, Brian.